for all to see. The signs we've lost our way. When we jail our heroes and applaud our villains and turn our hearts away. Like a silent choir, too scared to sing the anthem of a braver day. The ballad of Dr. Bruce Paix.
And there he is. Hello there, Copper.
Balladeering again, are we?
Balladeering again. Yeah, good to see you, mate. How are you tracking? All right?
Oh, yeah. Just about finished the overhead painting at the house, you know, where you wonder, oh, am I going to be paralysed if I sneeze, or can I move tomorrow? So still got some of the vertical surfaces, but I think we're pretty good for the rest.
Yeah, not much fun, the overhead painting. I've got a family member that's a painter, and he's in his 60s, and he's got all sorts of issues with his neck and shoulders and that overhead painting with a big fat wide rollers and other stuff over his lifetime. And it's geez, it takes it out of you, because I've done it a few times in my life, painting, and it does take it out of you when you have to do overhead work, that's for sure.
Yep. I think you're right.
So anyway, we are here again, and as usual, I'm just snuck into the studio with a couple of minutes to spare. So not a lot. And to be honest, yeah, I haven't really planned a lot, but I'm pretty sure that there's going to be a bit to unpack. I'm presuming the week the way it was last week, Bruce. I reckon you'll be talking into a few things that I'll probably have a bit of a comment about too. So I reckon there'll be a bit of discussion, my friend. What do you reckon?
There's going to be a fair bit of war update and then a few of the regular things.
Yeah, I thought the issue with the overseas with the war would get a good run with you this week, so that would open up a little bit of commentary. So that would be good. It's streaming everywhere. Look, we've got some comments coming in, so sorry I haven't kept up on these. So looks like we've got most of our platforms going, as we know. Facebook isn't, but g'day to everybody. Persia. Dynawall, what do we got here? Yep, Big Booty's here. Good on you. Good to see. What do we got here? Love the Awakenings here. G'day, Valerie on X. Good to see. X is there. It's I have to share. It's a bit of a different process with X now, because you got to go. I got to actually click on my little live icon and then share it. So yeah, it's a little bit different. At least we're streaming back on X, so that's all good. Obviously, and you didn't want me on the screen now, brother. Did you take me off for a reason?
No, I'm just
you're playing around with it.
You remember a few weeks ago I had that issue where when I clicked on a screen, the screen I'm seeing went down to a postage stamp like that. Thank you very much, Scream Out. Was doing it again. So, yeah, I can barely see any of the buttons. There you go. So, yeah, I'm just I'm pressing things on the screen to try and get something bigger than a postage stamp so I can see what my slides are. So,
oh, dear, what they call that. They call that, that's cool. What are you? You're a bloody Gen, well, I don't know, who knows what Gen you are. You're beyond whatever, I don't know. All these Gen Zs, Ys, Xs, all this. I'm sure what you are.
Okay, Boomer.
That's it. You found it, Boomer. That's the one. That's the one. Right. We're both a bit of boomers anyway. So anyway, brother, let's as we say, let's do this.
All right. Well, there we go. So, like I say, be prepared to zoom in and rescue me if you find that I've either deleted myself or you, because there's some slight technical. It's been doing this for a few weeks. I think StreamYard must have updated themselves to a new version that doesn't perfectly work for me. But there you go.
We'll blame StreamYard. We'll blame StreamYard.
I'm just checking through. I've got a tab called New Layout. I wonder what happens if I click on that.
Oh my gosh! Here we go.
Perhaps I won't. Perhaps I won't.
Well, I did offer to send you a new monitor, another monitor for you to be able to. You know,
yeah, I'm not sure that it's that, but anyway, okay. So there's the contents list for this week. So where are we going? So we're going to start off with the Gulf War updates. And we'd only just started talking about that last week because I think it kicked off on the Saturday night, our time. So it's a bit over a week in this time round, and there's been some pretty major developments, and I'm going to step through those and show you why I think we should not be taking this lightly. I think this has got a lot more potential to get bad than previous Middle East wars have.
Yep. Not to mention, and a lot of the commentary around, you probably might even touch on that, is the situation that our legacy parties, I'm talking about Labor and Liberal, because they've both been in charge of this country for over 100 years between them, on and off, and the situation they've left this country in is absolutely compounding what could end up happening here in our nation going forward in the coming time that this is going to go on.
Yeah, one thing you might be talking about there is the National Fuel Reserve, which is 30-odd days.
Yep, and obviously, so the decimation of our manufacturing and resource production and all these sorts of things. We are probably in the top 10 of the global resource and countries in the world. We were punched above our weights in regards to manufacturing over the decades. Australia was a powerhouse for the size of our population, of what we achieved in regards to ingenuity. Some of the best engineers, some of the best manufacturing we had in this nation, and it's been screwed by the traditional parties, Labor and Liberal, and no wonder people are looking for alternatives, Bruce.
Yes, our wise rulers have sent all our manufacturing overseas, and they've done it electively. It wasn't something we had to do. They did it by destroying our cheap, reliable electricity, which was Australia's #1 competitive advantage in the world. Yep. So they've elected to get rid of that, and both parties have been complicit in that. And here we all are. And you know what? One of the stories during the week is that apparently someone in the government's come out and said, well, this just vindicates our choice of switching over to renewable energies.
Yeah, well, I think he needs to. I think they're kidding themselves. And I was listening to an interview, and I got to say, I did watch it as Carl and Pauline and Barnaby. And they were talking quite heavily in regards to that topic as well, and how they've been calling it out for a substantial amount of time. Although Barnaby was part of the parties that were in government, so he did rightly say that the climate zealotry is one of the reasons that we find ourselves in the position we find ourselves. And he was mentioning something about Tanya Plibersek saying, because he was saying, well, what do you think? Where do you think the fuel comes from that goes into the trucks that deliver groceries and everything down the highway, and the diesel, and that comes from when in our reserves? And she made a flippant comment and saying, oh well, they got electric trucks. And he said, well, you go drive down the highway and you count for me how many electric trucks you see driving on our highways in Australia, and see how that's going to work out for you, because you've absolutely killed it.
Yes.
So
Silvertail apparently says that I've been drinking the Kool-Aid, and I hope Silvertail was watching quite a few episodes ago when I explained where the expression drinking the Kool-Aid came from, which was from the Jonestown massacre in Guyana. So the question is, why would a country's elected rulers choose to destroy it? Well, you tell me, mate. Well, how about arguing whether it's happening rather than questioning the motives? It's happening, mate. It's happening.
Yes, it's very, very interesting, isn't it? I mean, there's a lot of global powers at play, and we've talked about lots of things and lots of times. There's a lot of groups, a lot of very powerful, wealthy groups that tend to get together and plan things that aren't always in the best interest of nations. And unfortunately, we have politicians and bureaucrats that don't critically think and ask questions in the vein that someone like Senator Malcolm Roberts or Senator Gerard Rennick or ex-Senator Gerard Rennick would. And they're the type of politicians that we do need in this country running it, because they critically think, and they're just not yes men to parties that get funded by massive amounts of money and have massive amounts of lobby groups. And they're also beholden, and also don't push back on unelected bureaucrat think groups. So there's a lot of things that affect our nation.
And that was one of the iron laws, I think, last week, which said that organisations tend over time to transition from serving the people to instead serving the bureaucracy.
Exactly. And
maybe
that's why
that's
people are
the
pushing
reason.
back.
Yep.
That's the reason people push back. Yep, exactly.
Righto. So that was Gulf War updates, and there'll be quite a bit there. Interesting story in the health section, and I've said in the past that people are dogs, not goats, and that they should eat meat, not grass. And yeah, story this week that dogs, which by the way are generally eating biscuits, that's what kibble is, it's a biscuit, are ending up as fat as their humans with the same range of health issues. But fear not, because the doggy health industry's come up with a solution, and no, the solution does not include stopping feeding them biscuits. We've got also another carnivore diet hit piece. And, you know, we've discussed in the past my thoughts of the carnivore diet, my experience with it. But the reason I'm showing it this time is because this particular hit piece has 3 false arguments that they use. And I just want to point out what they are and name them, because very often when we're being fraudulently sold something, it's being sold by way of a false argument. So I'll just point out several types of false arguments and illustrate them with that piece. We've got a win for the people in the government overreach section, because a driver in Australia has won his court case where he argued that it was not reasonable for him to be responsible for monitoring his passengers' seatbelt use when he was at the same time driving on a busy freeway. So his fine for his passengers' failure to wear his seatbelt correctly was thrown out by the magistrate, and about bloody time.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yep. No, good to see. Some common sense prevailing.
Yeah, that's a change, isn't it?
Well, how about that?
In the miscellaneous section, we got a sort of story about why is it that AI can't draw fingers. And we've noticed in the last couple of years that the ability of AI to generate images, including moving images, is now extremely good. But one of the things that it often gets wrong is that the hands don't look right. Sometimes there's too many fingers or too many thumbs. And this story explained possibly why that is. And I've got a little interesting quirk on that we might be able to use to our advantage. In the zombie stories section, Australia's back to antagonising China by operating military helicopters and naval warships just off the coast of China. So I again ask, why are we doing this? Is this a good idea? And finally, in our Uslam Bird of Ridiculosity segment, we've got another couple of climate change and stories. The first one is climate change and the Gulf War. And apparently we have to stop the Gulf War because it's going to affect the climate. Well, that's interesting. I thought they wanted us to use less oil and gas. And finally, from Britain, they want to recruit hairdressers as trusted local influencers and get them to proselytise global warming to their hairdressing customers.
Oh, I wonder if they'll get them to proselytise. Maybe they'll get some information about from Big Pharma, and maybe they can proselytise that while they're doing haircuts as well, Bruce. Isn't that, that's isn't that what the celebrities and all that were doing, was like they got to push the climate change narrative as well as the take your medicine through the arm that's designed to go into protect you from respiratory illnesses, but it's going to be chucked in the arm. But anyway, let's just not.
You're not talking Karl Stefanovic again, are you?
Now, mentioning Karl Stefanovic, like you just and I seen Gail. I did see your comment about and you're right. He's getting quite successful in his YouTube and that, but I don't think we should forget. And this was shared by someone today. I do want to play this because I actually missed this along the lines, Bruce, somewhere along the lines. But I'm going to play it because it was shared, and this will probably get a few people riled up.
Do their bit for the country now, trying to protect other people from passing on this killer virus, which is what it is. You have and espouse all these weird, wacko beliefs, and unfortunately there are people out there who are going to believe you and who are going to side with you, and that's just irresponsible in the current climate. It's just irresponsible. You know what? I can't even listen to you anymore. I'm so sorry.
Put it to you, Carl?
I can't even listen to you.
I can't put it to you. You can't listen to me. That I have a medical exemption.
Nah, it's wrong. I'm sorry. Do their bit for the country now.
So apparently this is someone that was challenging the vaccine. Said they had a medical exemption, but he shut it down. Didn't want to hear about it. And so I don't think people will forget, regardless of how popular his podcast might become, and regardless of how much he's going to try and write things. I think people have long memories, and they won't forget too easily. I don't believe, mate.
Yep. At least he's admitted he was wrong. That's a start. But A, you don't have to forgive him. And B, if you do forgive him, you still don't have to forget what he did.
That's it. And Love the Awakening, that's right. I mean, he could be sincere if he got that person back on and apologised and said, look, I think we got it wrong. He made an online apology. And if he managed to reach out to this person and said, hey, look, the way I treated you on the Channel 9 program there with Ali Langdon, because we know that she was full of venom through that time as well, then there might be some of that, bring some people on and talk about the way that they were treated during that time. Maybe Craig Kelly's another really good interview that he could have on, and maybe talk about the way he was treated by Ali Langdon, and maybe get maybe there might be some grace there for people. But we'll see how we go. We'll see. I mean, obviously he's doing well. He's got lots of advertising. He's got the personality where he's able to advertise. He's advertising his own products. So hang on a second, bring you back on at the end. You're moving yourself around. So there you go. But anyway, let's get into your show before you knock yourself off or something. I'll bring your screen back up. I don't know, what is it? Is it this one? Yes, this one. There you go.
You can be my backstop if you don't mind. Yeah.
I can be the producer. Well, that's all I'm really here for. I mean, people are here for your content. I'm just the IT guy behind the scenes that tries to make it all run smooth, brother.
You know what? We need an IT guy behind the scenes, don't we?
Yeah, we do. Yes, crazy cookers believing in natural immunity. How dare we even think that's a thing? Yeah, yep, absolutely.
Well, it was such a new idea at the time, Mark.
Yeah, natural immunity, you mean? Yeah, who'd have thought it was around since Adam was a boy? But
that newfangled stuff.
Amazing.
Righto. Let's kick into it then. So, as I said, there'll be a fair bit of Gulf War update in this, and so let's call it the end of the first week. So, what's happened in the first week? We've had the US and Israel carrying out massive bombing strikes on Iran using both aircraft and missiles. And given the intensity of what we've been shown in the media and the likely combat power of two carrier groups, plus all the naval vessels, plus the ground-based assets largely in Israel, I think we can assume that the damage is indeed massive within Iran. Because of the sheer size of the first week's strikes. Now, the damage done has included killing their supreme religious leader, Ayatollah Khomeini.
And the next one?
No, actually, not yet. You're talking about the president. But let's just think about the supreme leader for a while. So Khomeini was a revered figure in Iran, even though he's been demonized by the West. In Iran, he had a long history as a warrior and a cleric. He'd been injured in the Iran-Iraq war and was widely regarded as a credible religious figure. So they killed him. They killed him on the first day of the war. And from the reporting I've seen, he elected to martyr himself and meet his fate. It's reported that he had a bunker he could have gone to, but he refused and he stayed at home in his residence. So he didn't go and hide in his rat hole. where the US or Israel, don't know which, drone struck him and killed him. And that was a huge mistake for the Western coalition there, because in modern terms, that would be the equivalent of killing the Pope. But not killing the Pope now, it would have been the equivalent of killing the Pope 300 years ago, when Europe was largely Catholic and very devout. And you dare not speak out. The church was very powerful. Speaking out against the church was heresy, and most people had a great deal of respect for the Catholic Church. So what the US and the Israelis have just done is they've just killed the Pope, basically. And not only will that solidify support in Iran behind him, because he's been martyred, and in Shia Islam, that's a major thing. He was an important person. He's effectively died in battle. He's almost been sanctified. I guess he's not like just like killing the Pope. It's killing the Pope who was a saint. And by the way, this is the man who issued a fatwa. A fatwa is an Islamic religious decree more than 30 years ago, where he said that Iran could not produce nuclear weapons because Islam did not allow it. So thinking back to what this whole war is allegedly about, Iran is, 10 days or 5 minutes away from making the bomb, as they have, by the way, been for 40 years. They've just killed the guy who forbid them from doing it. So that really does seem like a major own goal. They've not only created a martyr, which will solidify the country, but they've killed the guy who said the country was religiously not allowed to do what the Americans are apparently trying to prevent the Iranians from doing. And Iran does have a new supreme leader now, and it's Khomeini's son. And he apparently is much more flexible on the idea of nuclear weapons, having said that that fatwa could be modified so that it was acceptable for Iran to produce nuclear weapons under certain conditions. So, like I say, major own goal by America and the Israelis to kill the guy who said you can't do it and now replace him with somebody who said he's open to the idea. This is a really, really stupid thing that they've done.
Yeah, well, I mean, Donald Trump's really lost a lot of credibility for a lot of people. I mean, you and I were quite hopeful, and I think many other people were very hopeful when the election and all the rhetoric, and they were all pumping him up as one of the presidents that had the least amount of war record and that during his first term and all that, and he was the peace talker and all this. It's very disappointing. And as you said, you've indicated this before, that out of the whole administration, probably the only one that has some skin in the game would be Bobby Kennedy Jr. and Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
Yep, I think it's a terrible shame. I think Trump's gone completely off the rails, and I think it's now at the point where they risk losing. The Republicans risk losing the presidency at the next election. They've got the midterms coming up shortly, so that means that the House and the Senate are up for grabs, and the president is on the 2 years after that. They're on opposite cycles. So it looks like if what happens in Iran happens as I expect, this is going to turn into a Vietnam-level disaster. The public is going to crucify the government for it, and we're going to go back to multiple terms of Democrats, and they're going to swing a long way the other way. So your vaccine mandates could come back, socialism, higher tax, you name it. It's all going to be undone.
Social agendas, all those social agendas that they were really hot on.
Open borders, transgenderism, it's all, I suspect that Trump is actually going to create a catastrophe out of this, and it's all going to be for nothing, because I suspect, I'll discuss this shortly, but I don't think there's any way the US can win this war, not according to their self-stated victory conditions. Yeah.
And Richford up earlier asked a question, is there the slightest chance that all the war footage that's coming out is partly propaganda?
It's all propaganda, and I'll show you some of it. That's the truth is the first casualty of war. So yeah, I question everything, but I'm going to show you evidence for why I believe some of it and not the rest of it. So, okay, so I start off by saying, so the first week of the war, the Americans and the Israelis have carpet bombed Iran and killed their #1 religious leader. Not a great idea. Now, in response, the Iranians have proved that they've got teeth. So they've been firing missiles and drones back. And unusually or differently this time, they're not just firing at Israel. Normally, this would be an exchange between Israel and Iran. But this time, we've seen massive targeting of the Gulf countries. And that's new. And that's important because these Gulf countries are full of Western military bases. So Western bases have been attacked in the UAE, Dubai, and I've got a friend who's stuck in Dubai at the moment. Qatar, Bahrain, Kuwait, Iraq, Jordan, and Saudi Arabia. So US bases in all of these countries have been struck and struck hard from what I've seen. And in fact, it appears that these bases have been either destroyed or largely abandoned. So the billions that the West has spent putting bases up in these countries, it's all gone. And of course, this means that these bases can't be used to prosecute the war against Iran. They're too close to it. They're too at risk. So already the US is going to be forced to prosecute the war from Israel and from its carrier forces at sea. Worse than that, not only have the US, I'm going to keep saying the US. Anytime I say the US, think the Western coalition, US, Israel, and anyone else who's tagging along. So the US has spent billions and decades building up bases in many of these small Persian Gulf countries, and I just listed them. And part of the deal for them was, if you let us put an American base in, say, Dubai or Qatar or Bahrain, in return, you get American defensive assets, so you're safe against Iran. That's been a big part of the deal. Well, the first week of this war has said that not only do those defenses not work, certainly not effective, but in fact, they cause those countries to be struck. So I think not only have many of those bases been seriously damaged or destroyed, but I think the countries that host them are going to have a big think about whether they allow them to continue existing on their sovereign territory going ahead into the future. So basically, in the first week of the war, Iran has kicked the Western coalition out of the Gulf, and that's historic. That hasn't happened for a long time. Now, Israel is also getting missile struck, both with drones and a variety of cruise and ballistic missiles. And we're getting mixed information, reference the propaganda question. We're getting mixed information about how heavily Israel has been hit. We take it as read that Iran is getting very heavily hit, but it seems to me that the Israelis are very much downplaying the extent of the damage, as are probably the Americans, respective of the bases that they've had struck. And I believe, based on physics and other contacts that I have, that a great number of the Iranian missiles are getting through the defenses, if for no other reason than it's really hard to stop a missile that's coming down vertically from 100,000 feet in the air at a speed of Mach 10 or more. And we've seen pictures or video of missiles striking in Israel. But you won't see any of that in the Israeli media. The Israeli media is very much downplaying the extent of damage in Israel. And here's an example from the Jerusalem Post. So they've said here, Iranian missile strike wounds 6 in central Israel. Now, the picture they show there, you can hardly see any damage. You know, where's the zoomed out shot showing the destroyed buildings and the fires? You've got what could just be a building site. You know, it could be just the rubbish outside your home reno. And no mention of anyone killed either. It's just there's a few people were wounded in a strike. And that's the extent of what the Israeli media typically has been showing. And here's another example. Missile shrapnel falls in central Israel, 12 wounded as Iran continues barrage. So it's exactly the same recipe here. They speak about wounded but not killed. They don't really show any damage. And they don't even admit that it was a missile hit. They say missile shrapnel. Now, the implication there being that the missile defense systems blew up the missile and the parts of it rained down and injured a few people. So that's typical of what the Jerusalem Post is telling the people of Israel and also presenting to the world. Now, contrast that to what the Jerusalem Post showed us about Gaza. So they were very happy to show us Gaza in ruins. So there's an example. And here's another example. So I'm noticing a big disconnect between the style of the reporting about damage in Israel versus damage in the enemy states, Gaza or Iran. But non-Israeli stories are showing a different story or different pictures. So this is from AP, Associated Press, and you can judge for yourself how much you judge them to be independent. But AP is showing these sorts of pictures. So you got much more damage there. That's said to be in Haifa and Tel Aviv. And this.
Wow.
And this. And many of the podcasters I listen to are quoting people that they know, they've spoken to in Israel, saying that the damage in Israel is massive. But we're certainly not being painted that picture in the West.
Yep.
And it is a fact that the Israeli government is heavily censoring any reporting of damage that comes out of Israel. So as this poster said, Israel has banned its citizens from filming or posting footage of damage caused by Iranian missile strikes. Any video that escapes online is immediately buried under coordinated waves of automated accounts declaring it fake, AI-generated or Russian misinformation. So it's the old COVID story. The bad news has just been completely suppressed. And why would they need to suppress it if the missile defences were thoroughly effective, as we're told?
The old Iron Dome, eh? The old Iron Dome.
Multiple levels. And in fact, this video was posted a few hours ago to X, and it reportedly shows a overnight missile attack in Tel Aviv near the airport. I can't verify if it's genuine, but if it is, you'll note there's a major disconnect between the reports of a few people wounded, a bit of rubble and some shrapnel compared to this. So let's bring this up.
And we know that obviously the Mossad of the Israeli government has the technology. I mean, aren't they behind platforms like, is it Palantir or what's the other? There's some other platforms where they've got all the tech into the mobile phones and the little listening devices in the phones, and they can do all that.
נפילות אחי, נפילות של החיים בנבטים. נפילות בנבטים אחי. נפילות קשות בנבטים, שומע? וואו, 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 וואו. וואו! הכל נופל לנבטים, אני אומר לך מתקפה אחת החזקות. אימאלה, 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 זהו, למקלט. תפדלו.
Where's the Iron Dome there, mate? Interesting comment there from Trish Wildfire. I did hear that the Iranians very heavily in design of drones, and drones are sort of the next wave. You might be talking about that.
Yeah, and like I said, I can't verify whether that's genuine or not. But if it is, and that's just posted by a civilian, it's not a government released thing. That seems to me massively disconnected from the sorts of messaging we're getting from Trump and others, which is basically, it's a big, beautiful war and we're smashing it. Maybe we're not. Maybe we're not.
Big beautiful everything. Big, beautiful warp speed. Big, beautiful war.
It's a shiny war. Yep.
Yeah, and, I think Trish Wildfire sums it up. That's all. I mean, a lot of us can do is pray for peace each night, which is there's a reason why all this is happening, and it's when you have people that are interested in power and control and money and all that, they'll do anything, especially when you're sitting at the top and able to control these sorts of things.
No, Mark, it's a religious crusade. There's been multiple US politicians have said that. Pete Hegseth said it's a religious war. He's the Secretary of War. And multiple US senators have come out and said, this is a religious crusade. All right.
Forever wars. Yep.
But I made the point a week ago, and I make the point again now, that this war will not be won or lost on our damage versus your damage comparison. And that's all we're getting fed in the West, is that their damage is far worse than our damage. That's what we're being told. And the implication from that is that we're kicking their butts. But what the West fails to understand is that the US and Iran are not fighting the same war. As I've said before, in asymmetric war, the victory conditions are different for different sides. And in fact, the war that's being fought is different on different sides. So the US is fighting a bombing campaign, and Iran is somewhat responding, perhaps more effectively than we're being told, but it's not their main effort in the war. Iran's main effort in this war is an economic one. And ultimately, economics always determine wars, not combat power, because you need an economy to keep building the stuff that you then blow up. And so the way that Iran is fighting the economic war is by closing the Strait of Hormuz. And as we noted last week, that's an extremely important shipping lane. 30% of the world's exportable oil flows through it, about 20% of the entire consumption, but some consumption is not exported. So around 30% of the world's saleable oil, stuff that Australia's competing for, goes through that strait. And there are other important products come out of the Gulf country as well. But what the Iranians have done is they've shut the strait. So they've closed off that vitally important sea lane. And in fact, they didn't even have to do it kinetically. Kinetically means, with bullets and bombs. They basically did it just by threatening that they'd attack any ship that goes through it. That immediately resulted in Lloyd's of London, the major shipping insurer, jacking up their shipping insurance rates massively, and also making all the captains of the ships unwilling to risk their ships and their crews going through there. So even without firing a shot, Iran closed the straits. They have since attacked a handful of ships that were in the area, but they initially closed it just by saying it's closed. If you go through there, we'll attack you.
So not technically like having barriers to stop ships going through there. It's basically just a threat which people are taking seriously, and that's what's basically closing it down.
Yeah, and of course they can escalate the closure method. They can make it kinetic if they want. They can use missiles, drones, mines, etc. But so far they haven't really needed to, which is good because it costs them nothing. From an Iranian point of view, if all we got to do is say the strait's closed and no ships go through it, that's a pretty cheap military campaign, that one.
Yeah, well, again, and we've talked about this plenty of times. When you look into the money that's being spent currently by the Allies, mainly the US, on the weaponry used so far, we're talking in the order of billions. I believe each missile is worth a ton of money. So again, the share market for the big warmongers, the weapons manufacturers, they're loving it because what do you have to do? You have to replenish your armory, don't you? And who's going to make a ton of money out of that? And they don't care. Like, the Yanks just seem like they don't care. They're just going to keep pumping big rockets in there, and Iran just says, "Oh, we're going to come after you and close the." They don't have to do anything. It's like, who's the idiot here, right?
Yep, and economics will ultimately decide it, and it did go back in history. The reason that the US lost the Vietnam War exactly parallels this war. For one, they weren't fighting the same war as the Vietnamese. The US were trying to carpet bomb the country into submission, but the Vietnamese never surrendered. They just took it. They fought back with asymmetric weapons, and eventually they caused enough pain to the US that the people at home said enough. So the people at home stopped supporting the Vietnam War. The president fell, Nixon fell, and so the war was lost. And we're looking at the same thing here. So during that war, Nixon took the US off the gold standard so he could print money to pay for it. That caused massive inflation. How do you think the US is going to pay for all this weaponry?
Mm-hmm.
They're going to print money. So inflation is baked in ahead of us. And there's no better way to cause inflation than to do what they're doing. They're putting lots and lots of money into stuff that then blows up. It's not productive work.
No, exactly right.
So,
and who ends up paying is the lower and middle class of Australians and Americans and British and all those that end up going to pay the price, because the upper class, the people that are well insulated with wealth, this isn't going to affect them. It's the people living on the breadline that it's going to affect.
Yeah, and the US and increasingly the West is full of people who are struggling to make ends meet. We've discussed that many times.
Yep, 100%.
Okay, so initially Iran closed the strait just by saying it's closed, and the insurance companies withdrew cover so no ships would pass through it. Now, Trump responded by saying, well, that's all right, the United States will give insurance. So not a problem. Lloyd's of London's not insuring your ship, we'll do it. Get back to sailing.
What are they going to do? Cruise ships next to every bloody cargo ship and all ship.
Now, that's not going to work. It's not going to work. So it's not just the lack of insurance that the ship captains have got in mind. It's the risk that they'll die if they do it, or their crews will. So simply providing insurance, unless it's very good life insurance, doesn't fix the problem. So once that was pointed out, the US said, or Trump said, well, that's fine. We'll use the US Navy to escort tankers through the Strait of Hormuz. Pro tip, Trump, no, they won't. No, they won't. This is a very narrow waterway with 1,000 kilometres of Iran right next to it. All they need is drone strikes on a few tankers and that will stop again. But more likely, they'll get mass drone strikes on US warships and some will get damaged or sunk. So there is no way that the US Navy can pull this off. It can't defend ships going through there with the weaponry that it's got. They'll be swamped by drone storms because they're only 20 or 30 kilometres offshore. So no, the US saying that they will insure and escort tankers through the strait, it won't work. The US Navy does not have the capability to do that. And especially if mines are used by the Iranians, because the US has 0 minesweepers left in the Gulf. And in fact, the US and the British both brought home all their minesweepers in recent years from the Gulf. And I remember back when I was deploying to the Middle East, when we got briefed, the Navy people were very worried about mines even back then when we were going to Afghanistan and Iraq. The threat of mines was considered to be very serious. So, for example, they wouldn't send an Australian Navy ship to the Gulf unless it had been degaussed, demagnetized first. And that was at a period when there really wasn't any organized mining going on. Now, Iran mines would be one of their major weapons. So, yep, escorting ships through the Strait won't be done, can't be done. And if it is done, the Iranians will rub their hands and start sinking US ships.
Yep. I was going to point out a couple of things here because I mean, you know, my kind of mindset it's been sort of following the same thing, and Pickle Mix mentioned, and others have been, you know, when all else fails, they take you to war. But a comment here from Ivan Biggin as well, talking about the Genius Act, and while you were just having a chat, this is to destroy the Fed and bring the Genius Act, and I kind of didn't know too much about it, and I thought I had a quick little look at it. And the Genius Act explains, so it's saying here, the Genius Act marks the first US legislation on crypto assets, establishing a regulatory framework for US-backed payments, stablecoins. The law paves the way for mainstream adoption of stablecoins that could help propel the entire digital assets ecosystem, both fintech. And this is obviously by State Street Investment Management. Now, State Street's obviously on the top of the list with Vanguard and the other one.
BlackRock.
That's it, BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street. There's a lot of stuff, going on, and you know, I was kind of, my thinking was too, so many more people are becoming aware because they can't censor people as fast as what they're waking up to the way the world system's working, and there's a lot of people working up, and as Pickle Mix was saying, is that, you know, if all else fails, just create a massive distraction, and who else can do this than the big players in the world? So it's look, and this is not to say doom and gloom for everybody and give up hope, you know, whatever, because hope always prevails, no matter what. This is all this information's dark stuff. I get it, but the more people start to understand what they're dealing with in the world, the better. And a lot of these things are actually instigated for a reason. They don't just happen, or you know, organically. There's a lot of stuff that's behind it. So there's sort of my sort of thinking around. There's a reason a lot of this sort of stuff happens. Why would you screw countries to the wall like Australia and create these wars when Trump really didn't have to go down this path? I don't know. That's just my thinking, Bruce. I don't know where you're at with it.
I'm actually going to address possible motivations a bit later, so let's just hold that thought. Coolio. Sounds good. I'll let you get back to. I'll stop sharing mine just so we don't stuff you around. But I just wanted to also, and not that I want you to answer this now, but love the awakening later. If you could put your comment back in when Bruce talks about health. You said you could order blood tests online without having to do it. Doctor, could you please mention what one of those sites are, please? And we'll do that. So can you please put that comment back up when you when we talk about health and we're finished through this segment? Love the awakening. Yeah, great. So I can come back to that. Okay, so no, I don't want to add you to stage, do I? Oh yeah, that was me. Okay, so add me to stage. So we're still stepping through the Iranian actions of the first week, and the Iranians closed the strait. Trump said, that's fine, we'll give you insurance and we'll escort you. And I've said, no, they won't. If you put US Navy ships in confined waters like that, they'll be swamped with drones and they'll start losing ships. And in fact, the idea of area air defence, where you use naval assets to shoot down drones, has already been tried in the last couple of years in the next waterway over in the Bab el-Mandeb. And in that location, the Houthis, who live on the entrance to the strait there, entrance to the Red Sea, effectively shut down shipping through the Suez Canal simply by doing low-tech drone strikes on ships that were passing through that region on the way up to Suez. And the US and Europe put a multinational naval force in there to shoot down the drones. And in the end, they ran out of air defence missiles and had to leave. So it just doesn't work. And the Houthis are not even probably 100th of the power of the Iranians, but they managed to shut down the entry to the Red Sea just with a few drone strikes. So you cannot do area air defence close to shore in what's called a littoral against a swarm of missiles or drones. Something's going to leak through, and that's even if the captains are going to agree to take the risk and the ship owners are going to agree to take the risk. So in the Bab el-Mandeb, the major shipping lines said it's not worth the risk, despite the fact that there were multinational Western air defence destroyers there to keep them safe. They said, no, bugger that. We'll go the long way around Africa, which they did. Problem with the Gulf is there is no other way. There's no second exit to the Gulf. You've got to go through the Strait of Hormuz. And here's a fun fact about convoys that perhaps Commander-in-Chief Trump's not aware of. We've all seen the war movies where there were those dramatic defence battles between the escorts and the nasty German U-boats where the convoy would battle through because it was being defended by the escorts. You'd be familiar with those sort of war movies, I think. Well, here's a fun fact. Much, if not most, of the benefit of convoys, much of their loss reducing effect came not from the active defence actions of the escorts. It came from the fact that you bunched a whole lot of ships into one small piece of ocean. Instead of having them spread out all over the seas, sailing independently, so there was every chance that the U-boat's going to blunder across one from time to time. If you could put 50 vessels into an area not much bigger than the area that you put one or two, the chance that a U-boat's even going to discover the convoy is much reduced, because even a spread out convoy is a pretty small thing and the ocean is a pretty big thing. So a lot of the benefit of World War II convoying was not the weaponry of the defenders. It was the fact that they're all concentrated in one small patch of ocean. Problem with trying that in the Persian Gulf is there's not much ocean there. You don't have a big ocean to hide your convoy in. You're going to have a very small patch of sea to concentrate your ships and make it an obvious and easy target. So perhaps Trump's aware of the history of convoys.
Yes, there's not much room in the Strait of Hormuz, is there?
Yeah. The whole thing, the strait itself is like 30 or 40 kilometres wide, and the entire Gulf, you could probably see over it from an aircraft at low altitude. Yeah, it's a pretty narrow body of water. And the last thing you want to do is put naval ships in a narrow body of water because they can't use their area defence. You can get too close to them to attack them. You know, if the US put a carrier group in there, they will lose it. They can't do that. And in fact, they haven't tried. They will not do it. All right. So that's what's happened in the first week. And that's already having significant effects around Australia. And that includes, significant effects around the world and in Australia as well. So we've seen fuel prices spike up by 30 or 40 cents a litre just in a week. I've even seen early signs of rationing. And in fact, a few days ago, my local volunteer fire brigade got a call down to the OTR service station for a gas leak. And when we got there, after we dealt with that, I noticed that half of their pumps had Glad wrapped around them, so you couldn't pull the nozzles out, and signs on them saying this pump not in use. So I asked the manager, who said, yeah, we've shut down a lot of the lanes because we've got limited deliveries from our wholesalers. So already we're running short of fuel. And that's in the first week. Now,
there's a lot of carpooling going on, isn't there? A lot of jerry cans being filled up, a lot of bloody 44 gallons being filled up.
You hoarder, you.
Not here, don't worry.
Fortunately, our energy minister, Blackout Bowen, when he's not busy destroying the electricity grid, has also been overseeing the strategic fuel supply. And what he's come out and said is that Australia has ample fuel reserves and there's no need for panic buying. Well, that's good to know. So I just sort of ask, okay, how ample is ample? And our energy minister says Australia's got a bit over a month's worth of fuel in country. So petrol, diesel or jet fuel, all of them a bit over 30 days. That's it. That's how much petrol's in country. So if the petrol arriving here drops off, we're going to feel it almost immediately. And as I've said, we have felt it immediately with rising prices and in some cases rationing already in the first week. And this is a big change. I remember back in the days when I was younger, Bass Strait was a big producer and Australia had lots of refineries and we were pretty self-sufficient for liquid fuels. We're not anymore. So nowadays, Australia imports about 90% of its petrol and diesel, mainly from refineries in Asia. We do still produce a small amount of oil, but most of it's produced in those big red circles off the northwest coast. And we only have 2 domestic refineries left. Everything else is shut down. So we've got a limited refining capacity and it's 5,000 kilometres or whatever kilometres that is, might not be 5. It is thousands of kilometres away from where the oil is produced. And there's no existing infrastructure to deliver it to those refineries. So in fact, a lot of Australia's oil production goes overseas because there's no easy way to get it to our refineries. So it goes to refineries elsewhere and then we ship back in the produced product. So Australia is very reliant on petroleum imports, which is different to even a few decades ago.
Yeah, crazy. As I said, like our bloody legacy government, Labor and Liberal, have both sold us up the creek.
It's all right. We got 32 days worth in the kitty.
Yeah. Oh, joy. So much for self-preservation and sovereign risk management. You know what I mean? You know, like in a global environment, we should be looking after ourselves.
So how long might these 32 days worth of petrol have to last? Even if the war ended today and there was a surrender, whatever, there was a peace treaty, the straits were back open again, even if it ended today, we're looking at months of disruptions to oil exports from the Gulf for a number of reasons. One of them is that many of the big producers in Qatar and Kuwait and so forth have had to shut down their fields. So when you produce oil out of the ground, it's contingent on it getting on a ship and being transported away fairly quickly. So the handling terminals in the Gulf have got limited storage capacity and there's no ships getting out with it. So the storage tanks are full, the ships are full, and you can't keep producing oil out of the ground if you've got nowhere to put it. So a lot of the major oil fields are already shutting down production. And that's not as easy as flicking off a switch and turning it off. Same as, an aluminium or cement producer. You can't just turn the line off and then crank it back up when you're ready. It's a difficult process. It can cause damage and it can take weeks to restart production. And that's even if we were starting it right now. And in the last day or two, we've noticed that both sides are attacking each other's production facilities. So we may not be in the, well, we'll wait a month to turn it back on point, because we might find that a lot of the production infrastructure has been damaged or destroyed, and it's likely to get much worse. So I see big problems in the future, and I don't think we should underestimate the effects of this, both in how bad and how long.
Yeah. Yep. So
let's segue. Go on, Mark.
No, I was going to say, well, we're nearly creeping up to over 100 episodes, and I know we do talk and do a lot of things that are going on in the world, but also over that 100 episodes, there's been plenty of opportunities where you've suggested for people to set themselves up in a way that, I mean, this is going to affect everybody regardless of how well they're set up. I think even someone like yourself would have some limitations, but it's really about people really looking at becoming self-reliant. Get close to your kin, the old days of your tribe, get close to people, help each other out, community, support one another, really be there for one another, because that's what they can't kill. They can't kill your being able to rely on each other and strengthen each other and sustain each other, especially those of us that are in the along the same mindset. So not everything's lost. It is going to get tough. The world has been through lots of tough times in the past. It's really just about how resilient we make each other.
Yep. And one of the things I'm doing this year, one of my projects, is to learn how to weld.
Yep.
Tomorrow I go back to welding school for 8 hours.
Hey, show me some of your welds. Not a bad old job, mate. So good on you.
So they can't cancel ideas and skills that you've got in your head.
Exactly right. Become self-reliant as much as possible.
And become practical and useful to yourself and your tribe.
Amen.
All right. And circling back there, I've talked previously about fuel storage. And as a farmer, I always keep a couple of jerry cans. And I've experimented in the past with the best ways of storing fuel. And I've used plastic jerry cans to store both petrol and diesel. And I've found that both of them are perfectly usable after 2 years if you put a stabilizer in them and then store them in a cool, dark place. Your local auto store can advise you about not only the containers, but also the stabilizer. But I've got a picture there. And if you really want a long-lasting fuel store, barbecue gas bottles effectively last forever. And that's probably propane/butane, might be called LPG. But basically, barbecue gas, whilst it's in that container, effectively keeps forever. So now, of course, you should have already done this a while back. Now is not the time. Although it's not the worst time. You don't want to be doing it in a couple of weeks when you can't get anything. But if you're doing it now, you're going to be paying a premium for the fuels. But having some on hand, and I've had relatives say to me, okay, when's this going to end? The prices of fuel are up. Do I hang on? And I said, when you can't get fuel at all is when you learn what it's really worth. The amount of stored work in a litre of petrol or diesel is massive. And so the real value of petrol or diesel is certainly more than $2.50 a litre when the alternative is doing the work yourself. And I'm sure people would pay $5 or $10 a litre if they had to, where the alternative was you drag the plough yourself, you walk down to pick up the kids from school yourself. So they're incredibly valuable things. Now, I would say if you're going to store petrol, don't store ethanol petrol, the E10 stuff, because the ethanol petrol tends to precipitate out water in it if you store it over time. So if I store petrol, I store just regular old 91. I don't use a lot of petrol anymore because my car's a diesel.
Would you think there could be an increase in electric bike and scooter sales? Bruce, people were looking at these things, pushing people towards those.
Yep. Well, and that's one of the things. But of course, that stuff's all imported. So, if fuels are hard to get, then transporting stuff here is difficult. And of course, the manufacture of those things in China is going to be at risk as well. So it's not a simple answer.
Yeah. I'm going to say here, Venezuela, I heard that their oil exports are larger than ever have been just now, and they hold more crude oil than Iran, apparently. So I'm not too sure about that. Yeah,
and I think there are technical things with what type of crude comes out of Venezuela, and also I'm by no means convinced that the state of their oil industry is good or can be ramped up quickly. So I suspect that's all part of Trump just trying to talk down the rising gas prices so as not to scare the horses.
Yeah, exactly right. And over it's yes, he has started, but it's as you know, it's a very thick publication, and he's going to take him a while to get through it. It's a thick publication, and we know that you're a very detailed thinker, Bruce. So it's going to take you a little while, I reckon.
It's to hand, and I can't find it. I've already started writing notes. You see.
I know you have.
questions to myself. Yeah. I suppose once I can't drive anywhere, I'll have more opportunities.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, back to preparation. So just to flow on from the maybe you should be storing a bit of fuel, given the increasing unreliability of our electrical grid, one of the things I've done in the past is to gather or obtain myself a generator, and I'll just pass on what I've learnt doing that. So if you just want to run your house off a generator, you don't need a huge generator. And in fact, I know the number of times I've done it because I know that I'm paying for the petrol that I'm putting in the bloody thing. The generator is an emergency backup. I'm running a few lights, maybe I'm boiling a kettle, etc., etc. I'm not running the washing machine and the air conditioner and all my normal electrical drains because I'm sort of operating on emergency mode when I'm operating on a generator. So for that reason, you don't need to get a mega generator. You don't want one of those things that's got to be forklifted into your place. You just don't need it. So I find that a 3,000 watt generator is fine for running my house, just doing basic things, the fridge and a few lights. And indeed, I did notice in the past that when your house is quiet, in other words, if you're not doing anything in particular, you've got a light on, your fridge running, but you're not running the air conditioner, you're not running anything with a major power draw, you're going to be drawing less than 1,000 watts. So you don't need a huge amount just to run your house when it's quiet. So if you get a big generator, or in particular, if you get a diesel generator, you get a 10, 12, 15 kV diesel generator, it's going to be running on very light load most of the time. So not only is it going to be expensive for you to buy a big generator like that, but the way you're operating it is inefficient and possibly going to damage it. So when you think about the sorts of vehicles that diesels go into them, traditionally it was heavy trucks, more vehicles, light passenger vehicles now, but diesels like being run hard. They don't like being idled with little load because you can build up carbon in the cylinders. And when I was with the CFS in South Australia, one of our protocols is if we turned up at a scene where the truck was going to sit idling, we'd crank the hand throttle up to 1,300 RPM just to prevent exactly that. So don't make the mistake of buying a mega bastard generator just to run your house, and especially don't buy a diesel mega generator. You're not only buying too much, but you could damage it on low load running. So for me, in my old house, I had a beautiful Honda auto start generator, but I'm here now. So my backup generator is a cage generator like that. So it's manually started. You've got to have a transfer switch put in by electricians. So your house disconnects from the street and then you can switch the generator on. I love Honda small engines. You can't go past them. They're magnificent. And you'll get something like that for a bit over $1,000. I have used the Chinese Hondas, the Chondas, and they're okay. They'll probably get you out at a pinch. They're probably only a few $100s, but they're not the real thing. They're copies. They'll wear out more quickly and they'll make more noise. So I like me Hondas, and I don't think $1,000 is too extreme.
Yep. No, that's not too bad considering. Then it's really just making sure you got a few jerry cans around. You can probably get this back to this one if you want to, in case we lose the comment. But over it asks how you freeze yourself cold and frozen dear and cheap, or whatever you. I'm
not sure. Is that in the context of if the power goes off? Because if the power goes off, my generator will run my freezer. Otherwise, when the power was on, they're just in the fridge. Once they're processed, they're just in the freezer as normal.
Yep. So you got a chest freezer or something like that, or just a big freezer or something.
Yeah, I've got a chest freezer. All right. And before we leave the subject of generators aside, one thing I've also done just for a bit of engineering fun is I converted one of my generators to run off those gas bottles that I spoke about. So the barbecue gas will work forever. And you can buy very cheap conversion kits, I'm thinking $30 or $40 off eBay, which will allow you, with a little bit of handyman skills, to run your petrol generator off a barbecue gas bottle. And I've done it. So again, that's another, basically you got a dual fuel generator, and I've done it and it works. Incidentally, in the picture there, they've got what's called a suitcase generator. That's a little generator, be about 2,000 watts. And basically the whole thing is in that little enclosure and you can carry it around in your hand, as opposed to the cage generator, which we had there. Now, suitcase generators are more portable. They're much quieter, but they're pretty small. So if silent running was really important, you might go for one of these. Whereas if you weren't so worried about noise and you just wanted a robust backup, I'd go for one of these. Now, a note, again, I love Honda small engines. They're magnificent. If you buy a or a knockoff Honda suitcase generator from a Chinese or other manufacturer, just start it up and see how noisy it is, because a lot of the silent suitcase generators are silent when they're Hondas, but they're bloody noisy when they're Chondas. So again, you might want to just check before you buy it. And it's going to cost you a lot more for a lot less capacity. But when South Australia had its first 3-day blackout, I ran my house off one of those. One of those 2,000 watts. And after that, I put a slightly bigger one in. But you can do it. And you can cycle it around. You can have a few lights on. You can put your fridge on for an hour, then swap over, put your freezer on for an hour. It's a great backup. It's worth thinking about.
Yeah, good idea.
All right. So that was a little diversion there. But back to the golf.
Prepping conversation, Bruce. Prepping conversations.
Us preppers prefer the self-sufficiency argument, because preppers are dangerous. Preppers are dangerous radicals who are likely to be rounded up along with the sovereign citizens and the anti-vaxxers and you name it.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
And make no mistake. We've got
to use the right terminology, don't we? We've got to change the terminology, haven't we? We've got to change it.
If things really go to custard, Mark, you want to keep anything you have hidden, because the state will come and steal it. They'll call you a hoarder, and they'll come and steal your stuff. And all your neighbours who didn't prepare will be happy to hold their hands out for your stolen stuff, because that's how the tax system works now, isn't it? Government will come along and steal your stuff and give it to your neighbours. They do it already.
Yep, 100%.
Anyhow, I've said that in the first week of the war, the flow of oil through the Straits has stopped. There's a little bit gets out via pipelines across Saudi Arabia and from Oman, but basically a huge amount of the oil shipments have stopped. But it's not just oil, because the Gulf is a major source of several other things. So aluminium, about a third of the world's aluminium comes from refineries in the Gulf. And I'm guessing that's because aluminium is very energy intensive and they've got cheap energy there. Fertilizer is also a huge product from the Gulf. And again, about a third of the world's fertilizer comes out of ammonia made in the Gulf. And there's also plastics and chemicals and so forth. So we aren't just talking about petrol prices here. We're talking about other things. Now, this is a bit of an interesting take on one thing you were saying earlier about distractions. And this is from Peter McCullough's site, where he's asking about, okay, isn't it convenient that this Gulf War kicked off, the one that Trump said he'd never do? Isn't it convenient this kicked off just about the same time that the Epstein files were reaching a crescendo? So here's what he said. The recent, more extensive release of the Epstein files was the closest the ruling class has come to being exposed in centuries. The war in Iran changed the subject. And then he references this quote from James Madison, who was an early US president. Among the Romans, it was a standing maxim to excite a war whenever a revolt was apprehended. And that was called divide, or divide et imperia, divide and conquer. It's literally the oldest trick in the political playbook. When the mass of ordinary, naive, hardworking people start to wake up to the reality that they have been manipulated, exploited, and played by an arrogant ruling class that regards them with contempt, the ruling class starts a war abroad against an evil and menacing foreigner. This completely changes the subject and focuses all attention on the evil foreigner thereby eliminating the revolt at home. Now, I'll leave it up to you. Does that sort of ring true at all?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people would lean towards the ringing of that being true, Bruce, I believe.
Rings true, I
believe it.
Yep, I reckon it rings true.
Yep.
Okay. Nevertheless, the public are quite sceptical nowadays, and I think COVID helped with that. And there's a lot more people prepared to question the motivations of our wise rulers. And what this means is that there's a lot of people in America and even in Israel and obviously in the rest of the West who are not happy that Trump is elected to take the country to war and drag along, at least economically, you and I. There's a lot of people are not happy with this. So even in the US, the support for the war is 40% and the against is 60%. And traditionally, wars are popular, at least to start with, especially if it's a big, beautiful war with lots of good telly made out of bombing and where the other side's not shooting back, which is what they're telling us is going on mainly here. So I'm already on the lookout for what's called a false flag because the support for this war is already declining. It's already low. And this is a big problem because Trump's got midterm elections coming up this year. If the thing all goes to custard, those are going to be a disaster. So they need to rally the population around the flag. And traditionally, the way they've done that in the past is to generate, either carry out themselves or generate what's called a MIHOP, a make it happen on purpose, to generate a domestic attack, which gets everybody revved up. Yeah, we've got to go get these bastards. And we've discussed before, here's a couple of examples from the last 100 years. Pearl Harbor was certainly at least a LIHOP, a let it happen on purpose. There were so many things that happened in the lead up to Pearl Harbor. Not only did the US force Japan to attack by cutting off Japan's oil supplies, but they facilitated the attack by standing down the defenses, by concentrating the aircraft all in the same place, by telling the radar operators that the incoming Japanese raid was just a flight of B-17s, don't worry about it, and turn the radar off and go home. So there were many things that stunk about Pearl Harbor, and the Americans knew it was coming. They caused it to happen. They knew it was coming, and they just stood there and took it because at the time, the US populace was isolationist, and the American government needed a reason to go to war, and there it was. And of course, 9/11, we've discussed in the past, there were many things that still smell about 9/11, Building 7, if nothing else. But what happened after that? Endless Middle East wars. You know, the justification for, going and getting Saddam and Osama bin Laden. So basically, the Twin Towers attacks rallied the police around, public around the flag and allowed the next 20 years of warfare in the Middle East. It justified it.
Well, the risk of a gazump strike is some people would suggest that a good LIHOP would be something where a recent country's defences allowed a massive attack in October sometime in a certain year. That could almost be a LIHOP as well, couldn't it? Some people indicate that it might be.
That would have to have been carried out by an unpopular government, and it would have to have resulted in some sort of massive war to follow. So I don't know if those boxes got ticked, did they?
In a matter of destruction of a total annihilation of that said aggressive neighbour.
And still happening. And I saw an interesting tweet on X today where somebody put in and said, enough of harping on about the Holocaust. After all this, I'm sick of hearing it. STF.
Bankers Wars. Yeah, and Donovan, I remember seeing an interview about the USS Liberty from one of the people that were meant to be on that. That was another really interesting event, that too. I don't know if you ever saw any interviews about that, Bruce.
Yep. I've been over that episode as well. Yep. Anyhow, from my favourite analyst, Christopher Martinson, who's, as I've said, is the podcast that I pay for. It's about $40-something a month and highly worth it. And he's been great during COVID. He's good now, So I highly recommend Christopher Martinson, Peak Prosperity. But he published this handy guide just a few days ago, how to spot a false flag. So number one, the event only kills ordinary people, kids at school, office schlubs at work, and nightclubs are the usual prey. So a false flag here is not going to involve wiping out a quarter of the US government, nuke strike on the Capitol. It's just going to be some, randos in Minnesota. Number two, every media outlet has the full and true story about who did it and why in less than 24 hours.
Yep.
Number three, the narrative is repeated endlessly over and over until it becomes the truth in easily programmed people. Sadly, most of them.
Yep, 80%, 85%.
And he summarises, it's not a false flag if it's smart and strategic, taking out power pylons, feeding the northeast from Canada, dropping conductive chaff on electrical substations from drones, swarm attacks on air bases, public airports, things like that. So it's going to be a publicity stunt that hurts the ordinary people. It's not going to do any military damage. That's Chris Martinson's recipe for a false flag. And I would, given how badly the war's going, I think that's a definite possibility now.
Yeah. Or people that recently purchased and overinsured some massive skyscrapers in America.
Well, not necessarily massive, maybe even just a building 7 in America, something like that.
Yeah, that was meant to have some records about some money being gone missing from the US Treasury or something along those lines, I think it was. Anyway, we digress.
We do. So my overall take after the first week is do not underestimate how serious this is. This could have long-lasting and worldwide consequences, and it could get a lot worse. I don't think it's just going to blow over like the 12-day war did. I think this has a potential to become as bad as the 1973 oil shock, which most of our viewers are probably too young to remember.
Yep. And just remember, humanity is very resilient. These things are sent to try us, and as I said, it's really just about... Yes, it's take it seriously, but also gather together and help each other out. Be there for one another.
Yep. And to finish, this tweet from today, which basically says they've sent the script out and the official narrative is already crystallising about this war. And it looks like they're going for the old 2 weeks to flatten the curve thing. So let me just play you this one.
Yeah, hang on a second. You want me to get this one off the screen so you can find your other one?
This is a short-term disruption for the long-term gain.
Short-term pain for the long-term gain.
Short-term pain be for long-term gain.
We're going to have some short-term pain with long-term gain.
Short-term pay for a long-term gain.
Some short-term pain, yes, but we've got some long-term gain. Short-term spike for a long-term gain.
Some short-term pain for American consumers. We may have to deal with that in the short term.
Short-term and temporary.
Temporary short-term pain.
It's going to suck in the short term.
Some short-term pain.
Short-term pain. We have to focus on the short term. Short-term and long-term.
Short-term left. Hopefully this is a short-term pain.
Short-term is highly outweighed of the long-term benefits.
Some short-term pain for the long-term gain.
Short-term sacrifice for a long-term gain.
This is a short-term disruption for the long-term gain.
Short-term pain for the long-term gain.
Short-term pain be for long-term gain.
We're going to have some short-term pain with long-term gain.
Short-term pay for a long-term gain.
Some short-term pain, yes.
It's bloody COVID all over again. Holy dooly, man. It was just so painful to watch. It's like, wow. That is so. I remember the whole bloody, you know, the screen that they brought up with the whole same messaging through the whole bloody COVID dilemma. It's like, seriously, these people, don't you think they could write some new scripts about how they want to propagandize the crap that they're getting on with? My gosh,
that is the new script. That is the new script. So it's gone from, you know, flatten them in 4 days to a week to 2 weeks to, I don't know, maybe home by Christmas.
Yeah, flatten the curve in 2 weeks. Oh my gosh. And the problem is like how they keep getting away with this stuff, because 85% of people just got their head in the sand and going, oh, let's just trust the experts, trust the media. And it's just, oh my gosh.
Can you see why people who think and discuss things like us are a threat to them?
Oh, 100%. That's why you get kicked off. And I mean, people know, I mean, I got nuked off Facebook, but I'm only a low hanging fruit. I mean, there's so many people much bigger than me that have been attacked. Look at all the good quality doctors that got silenced during COVID and other stuff, and the good commentators like Mr. Masterson, you know, probably don't get to see the light of day. Even Corbett, the Corbett Report is another one. I mean, he's doing some pretty decent work. So yeah. Yep, absolutely.
All righties.
Oops.
Okay. Oh, I think we. Oh.
How do you do it? I was just trying to help you out because you got the small screen problem, right? So
it's flicked up to full size again. So it's
that's all right.
It seems all a bit. It's sent to try us anyway.
I'll take my hand off the controls. I'll just trust you, brother.
Now, speaking of trust the experts and 2 weeks to flatten the curve, let's look at the health segment. So this story is telling us that dogs are getting fatter, with over half of British dogs being overweight, and it's causing serious duration of life restriction. This saying that up to 2.5 years of life were lost by dogs. Now, dog life depends on the breed, but 10, 12 years is an old dog. So they're looking at pretty significant loss of life expectancy in dogs. And doesn't that reflect humans of late as well?
Mm-hmm. You got to bring that image out again.
Fear not, however. Fear not. Fear not, because there is a solution to your fat pet. They're bringing out wearable biometrics. So this is a collar that can monitor your dog's health parameters using a Series 3 Plus pet tracker, by the way. And what this will do is this will alert the pet owner to developing risks to the pet's health and allow them, therefore, to seek veterinary advice. That's what the story says.
Geez, vets charge just as well as doctors, don't they?
Now, let's guess what the vets might advise for your fat dog. And I've been down this run because I did try to advise a close relative who had a small, fluffy rat dog that was seriously overweight. And as a result, the vet had prescribed this special diet kibble for the dog. And I went through the ingredients of this special diet food, which was expensive and had to be prescribed by the vet. And it's full of carbohydrates. So here's some example. Whole grain corn, gluten meal, chicken byproduct meal, whatever the hell that is, cellulose, soybean meal run. So they're most of the ingredients. They did have dried beet pulp, whatever the hell that is, pork liver flavor, soybean oil, lactic acid. They did have pork fat in it, but it doesn't say how much. And after that, it seemed to be full of chemicals. D-L-methionine, L-lysine, potassium chloride, choline chloride, iodized salt, vitamins, polysorbate, vitamin A supplement, pyridoxine, you know. So this is a highly processed dog food. And if you look at it as it comes out the bag, what it is it's a biscuit. You know, these are the hard, dry dog foods, also called kibble. But no, it's a biscuit, and it's grains and chemicals. So this is what your vet prescribes to cure your dog's obesity. So more of the cause, in other words. And if you feed dogs biscuits, you get the same thing as if you feed humans biscuits. They both get fat and unhealthy. So I went down this line with my close relative with a fat rat dog and said, this is what is wrong. And I convinced them to feed the dog a appropriate diet, which was raw meat. And I even went out and bought some little plastic tubs, and I bought some raw meat, and I passed it all up to a few weeks worth and said, here, give your dog one of these each night. Don't feed them all through the day. Just this is one meal each time, and we'll see how we go until 3 weeks. Anyway, next time I got back there, most of the food was still in the cupboard. The dog was back eating biscuits and still fat. And I said, what happened? I couldn't have made it easier. And the basic answer was, I was scared the vet would rouse at me.
What?
What you do?
Adult up.
You feed your dog raw meat, the dog gets healthier and loses weight. And then when you go back to the vet, you lie. And you say, yeah, I was feeding the biscuits. Anyway, so
one of the vets gets bonuses for recommending hills, like, you know, some doctors get bonuses for recommending certain stuff.
Of course. Now I wonder if the next thing is going to be Pet Zempic. And apparently Ozempic itself is not suitable for dogs and cats because of the side effect profile. Same as in humans, by the way. But you can bet your life that Big Pharma is working on doggy and catty Zempic. I do not doubt it. I do not doubt they'll be coming up with their own version. So question is, how could it be that the veterinary industry is making all of the same mistakes that the medical industry made in not recognising the true causes of chronic ill health, that being dietary? Well, it's not a mistake, it's deliberate. And it's a deliberate playbook of Big Pharma, big veterinary pharma and food. And they've gone about it the same way as they did in medicine. So they took over the science, they took over the education, so that when you put these students through the universities, all they get told is, yep, you can't do it with diet. Dogs should be eating biscuits and maybe get Ozempic. That'll be my guess. So same strategy, same business model in both cases. Capture the science, capture the profession, capture the education, and get them then to market your products. And same outcomes. Chronic ill health in companion animals, same as in their human owners.
So there you go, doing the same for pets. And as we know, you know, people, Albert Bourla and others that, you know, went into vaccine manufacturing were vets. And you know, Donovan asked that question. So I had a bit of a look at who owns that one, that Hills diet thing. It's actually the Hills food that you brought up on the screen was it's owned by Colgate Palmolive. And as we know, Colgate Palmolive is a publicly traded company, and the top shareholders of Colgate Palmolive is Vanguard, BlackRock, State Street, T. Rowe Price, Capital Management, the regular ones, right? So, you know, of course, you know, pet tech, pet medicine, pet drugs, pet food, it all benefits the same institutional investors, lo and behold.
Same business model, same result.
Same business model, same result. Yep, absolutely. Now,
as a flow on from that, you'd be aware that I'm a big fan of the carnivore diet. I've been on it for over 5 years, and I believe it is very helpful. But this doesn't suit BlackRock because it's really difficult to make billions of dollars off fresh meat because you can't scale it up. You know, these doggy biscuits can be made out of cheap chemicals and grains anywhere in the world, shoved in a bag, sent anywhere in the world, and shoved on a shelf for years if necessary. So it's a much better product to sell than fresh meat, which the supply chains can't be that long. It's got to be processed relatively locally. It's got to be sold fairly quickly. It's got to be consumed fairly quickly. And I know this because, again, as part of my man skills, when I'm not learning welding, I'm learning how to process my own sheep. And I did have a couple of sheep the other day, which I'd removed from the sheep, and they were magnificent.
Yep. Yum, yum.
Okay. So just the same as they want the pets on the biscuits, they want the humans on the biscuits, and people who go, no, hang on, this is how we're meant to eat. Fresh meat will make you healthy. They've got to keep attacking that. So this story tells us that influencers who are promoting the carnivore diet are spreading dangerous misinformation. Now, the reason I'm bringing this story up is I want to just show you 3 common debunk tricks because they used them all here. So here's how they supported this story. So first off, I'll read it all. The carnivore diet can dramatically increase LDL cholesterol to 3 to 5 times the normal range for a healthy adult. It goes against over 50 years of research on the links between saturated fat and heart disease. And that's written by someone with a master's degree in preventive cardiology. So what are the 3 tricks that they're using here to pad out this story? So first off, they're saying that the carnivore diet is unhealthy because it raises your cholesterol. Well, that's called an irrelevant surrogate marker. Measuring your cholesterol is not the same as measuring your health. I say my health got better after I went carnivore. How about you measure my health? How do I feel? What sort of joint aches and pains? What's my blood pressure? What are my activity levels like? How good's my brain? So those are the measures of health. How good do you feel in your normal activities of daily living? And do you have any restrictions? No, well, they haven't measured any of those things. They've just measured your LDL cholesterol and said, that's high, so that's bad, so it's unhealthy. Well, that's an irrelevant surrogate marker. I don't believe LDL cholesterol or any cholesterol is relevant to your health at all. It's a natural molecule in your body. It's not a poison. And it's not the same as saying your health went down because that changed. So that's the first trick they've used. Now, the second trick they've used is they've said that it contradicts 50 years of research. So that's called an appeal to consensus. Everybody knows, all scientists agree, we've known this for 50 years, this is not a good idea. Okay, well, where's the evidence? All you're saying is that we've believed this for a long time and most people believe it. So that's called an appeal to consensus. That's the everybody knows this argument. Well, what if everybody's right? Everybody knows vaccines are safe and effective. Yeah, what if they're all wrong?
Yeah.
And finally, they tell us that the author is an expert. So the author's got a master's degree in preventative cardiology. That's called an appeal to authority. So we should believe the person that wrote this because they're an expert. Trust the experts.
Trust the experts. Yeah, like we had to trust the experts for the last 5 years, Bruce, and probably even longer. Some of us that woke up late in life.
Personally, I would not be running a trust the experts argument at this point.
No, exactly right. Exactly right. Yep.
So I thought people might be interested in those 3 pieces of sophistry. Sophistry means false arguments.
Before you jump on there, I wanted to get back to the question about the blood tests online.
Righto. Well, let's. I did look into that. So, how about? Have you got a screen for me? I'll bring it. Here we go. Present or invite. So, what have I got here? So, did that come up for you?
No, that's just the money one that you bought. Oh, hang on. Let's bring this one up here. Hang on. There we go. that's the one we're looking at now. Online Blood Test Australia.
Okay. Yep, so you got that. That's good. So, so just put into your search engine something like that, Online Blood Tests Australia, which I did. And I'll now click on that. There's the first one. Let's click on that. And there's any number of these in Australia, and you'll get something like this. And basically how it works is they'll have a menu. You can either get some sort of panel that you're interested in. I only just go for specific things like vitamin D. And you pay them a fee, which is modest and certainly less than you going and badgering your doctor into ordering it. They will send you a pathology order form online. You print it out and take it round to IMVS or Dorovich or whatever pathology collection centre you've got in your local area, and they will get the result from that, and then they'll send it. They'll just email it to you. So that's how you do that.
So they request in, yeah, right, okay, interesting. Obviously Medicare or whatever. Or pay for it.
I guess, look, there's usually a modest fee with it, but look, my experience with it, it was less than, you know, going and having a doctor's consult, which where I live is like $80.
I know, now it's crazy. I remember when it was just not only about 2 years ago. I mean, surely they've made enough bucket loads of money during COVID, didn't they, with the government incentives and all that? But anyway.
Anyway, look, we're all adults. If you want to order your own blood test, you can pay for your own blood test, but the price will be modest, and the online portal will tell you what it costs.
Yep. And I got to put this comment up from our friend Overitz, Jack, because many people that watch my show, I've interviewed Edward J. Steele a few times. He's a great Australian immunologist, and so Overitz Pooch is named after Teddy Steele. How about that? Edward J. Steele. Good on you, Overitz.
And that's funny because my black cat is named after the code word that was used by Wing Commander Guy Gibson to signify success after the Dam Busters raids in the Second World War. Do you know what that code word was?
No.
Nigger.
Okay. You watch YouTube. YouTube are going to be probably. Okay.
So my black cat is paying homage to Wing Commander Guy Gibson's success in that mission.
There you go. Oh dear. Without context, the AI is going to pick up that one word on YouTube and probably ban it. But anyway.
We're all adults here, right?
We are, but obviously the censor brigade doesn't understand that.
All right, so quick flick through money and finance. Not a lot of change given the events that are happening in the world. So we got a mild drop in gold. We got a bigger drop in silver, but that was up. Stock market's down and the price of oil is up. And the outlier there is that Bitcoin has been quite strong recently, and I actually wrote the wrong number in there. It's not 92,000 this week, it's 95. So Bitcoin's up this week. Normally when you have a world shock, you get what's called a flight to safety. People sell everything and just sit in cash because they don't know what's going to happen. And most of this mirrors that, except for Bitcoin. Bitcoin springing up like that is unexpected. And possible reason for that I've heard mooted is that this was a lot of big money in the Gulf states, so Dubai, Abu Dhabi, etc., who, by the way, were paying $300,000-$400,000 for a seat on a private jet to fly out of the Gulf when the airports are still largely closed. But one suggestion was that a lot of people were converting some of their existing wealth into Bitcoin because it's portable. So Bitcoin is one way to get large amounts of money instantly out of the Gulf states. So that might explain why Bitcoin failed to drop off when basically everything drops off when you get a world shock.
Yeah, but when you still consider, like, what was it, a bit 80k to a 90k drop though? We're only a couple episodes ago we had it up at around 180,000, didn't we?
That'd be 6 months ago. It was 180. That's right. Bitcoin does this. Bitcoin is very volatile, and as they say, it's the price you pay for performance. If you can't stomach a 50, 60, 70% drop, then you're not going to earn a 300% rise. It's not for you. You can't do that.
Well, no. Well, 90K is still bloody bucket loads higher than when you first bought it.
It's better than the $800 I paid a while back.
Yes. Yeah, indeed.
Righto. Government overreach, govern me harder. So, bit of a win for the little man this week, because an Australian court has agreed that it was not reasonable to expect a car driver to constantly monitor the seatbelt use of a passenger, particularly in this case, when the passenger started the journey properly seatbelted, and then sometime during the journey slipped the seatbelt under the arm. So in that picture, the camera has said that the seatbelt is being worn but not correctly worn. Now, I would have argued... Go on.
I was going to say, it's funny, though, because it looks like the driver doesn't even have his seatbelt on, unless it's the colour of the clothing, and it doesn't even look like there's a seatbelt going over him or her. Can't even see a seatbelt.
That is true now that I look at it. I would have actually argued that it's not clear where the passenger's seatbelt goes, because you can't actually see the arm on the left, so you don't know whether it goes above or below. That would have been my argument.
Right. Unless it's a stock photo or a different photo than the actual image or whatever. Well, maybe.
Yeah, that's a good point, isn't it? Anyhow, so I had a couple of things to say about this. Look, I agree. Is it reasonable to expect one adult to become a policeman and police the actions of another adult, even if they are in your car? Why is it my job as the driver to make sure that another adult in the car is wearing a seatbelt? Surely the infringement, if any, should accrue to the person who committed the crime. Anyway, he argued in court that he was on a busy road, he had lots of things to do, that it wasn't reasonable to expect him to monitor his passengers so closely in that environment, and the magistrate agreed and dismissed his $1,200 ticket.
Well, $1,200. Is there to get the money out of you, bloody no matter where you go.
Now, the second thing I wanted to say is that, I agree, that's great. The second thing is, okay, in order to have a crime, you have to have a victim. If to have a murder, you've got to have someone who got killed. To have an assault, you have to have got somebody who got injured. To have a robbery, you have to have somebody who had something stolen from them. So it's axiomatic that in order to have a crime, you have to have a victim. So who is the victim in this case, even if that person was not wearing a seatbelt at all? Who's the victim? Name the victim. If I've committed a crime, who did I commit it against?
Against the state, Bruce, because it's a way for them to get their money, Bruce. It's if you
and what is the name? What is the name of that person in the state that I committed this crime against?
Yeah, no, good question. Well, it would be the police minister, probably the minister for police or something like that, or even a commissioner for police, maybe.
They weren't in the car, so I can't see how. I can't see how it could be them.
Well, of course, because you robbed them of revenue, Bruce. You robbed them of them stealing money off you. So
interesting point. So, I don't believe there's any such thing as a victimless crime, and most traffic crimes are victimless crimes. Overstaying in a parking space, speeding without any consequence. So if I'm cameraed at 70 in a 60 zone, I'll get a ticket. Question is, okay, if you're saying I've committed a crime and I've got to pay a fine, who is the victim? You can argue that someone could have got hurt, and my argument is, but nobody did.
It's the old case of preventative injury and death, isn't it? And I mean, you've been a long time CFS volunteer, would see the carnage created on our roads and people injured. So, yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting conversation. This how far, where do you draw the line about, preventing death and injury to other people? Because I mean, look, the studies are there, even in regards to seatbelts. If you're driving a car at speed and you're not looking at self-protection for yourself, you're an idiot, I reckon. And if you can, in the event of an accident, you're an idiot. But yeah, whether it should be punishable for not wearing a seatbelt, this is the complex conversations that never go away, is it? This libertarian kind of mindset.
Correct. So the state is basically saying in this case that you can't commit this dangerous behaviour because you might injure one of our possessions, your passenger.
Mm-hmm.
And that circles back to we are livestock being farmed by our governments. That's why they care. Anyway, interesting little theoretical. I've obviously forgot to turn the phone off.
Oh my gosh, there's the old ringer. I remember that ringtone.
I think I turned it off. Sorry about that. I normally turn that off.
That brings back memories. The old bloody dialer phone with the old, I remember. I'm old enough to remember the old dialer phone. It's funny. You're in. You're in demand.
Just excuse me while I say we'll
disable the phone, chuck it out the window, make it horse food.
Oh, I couldn't even send the bloody message either because it was not on mobile. Anyway, sorry for that.
We're only 98 shows in, Bruce. That's all right. You're allowed to have.
And I am so looking forward to our last show at 100. I really am.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure there'll be a lot of people upset. To be honest, we got a lot of people coming on that look forward to Monday show with you, Bruce.
All righties. So here's the run home miscellaneous. So we've discussed in the past how rapidly AI is improving its ability to produce both still and moving images. And one of the things that it still tends to get wrong is hands. So often the hands don't look right. There might be 2 thumbs, there might be 4 fingers, there might be 6 fingers. But one of the things you can still look for to detect AI graphics is the hands. And so when I saw this story which says, okay, why does AI screw up the hands and fingers? I read it because, why does it? And so here's what it said. The reason that hands are often difficult for AI is because they're a relatively small part of the image generally. They're not usually the center of attention on it. They're just a peripheral thing. And they're quite small. So for those reasons, AI hasn't learnt how to do hands as well as it's learnt to do many other things. So it's harder for AI to get it right. And I was pleased, therefore, to see that the free market has actually noticed that and thought this could be a useful defense to surveillance film. The other thing is there is real surveillance film being taken of us all the time, such as, for instance, that seatbelt cam that we just looked at. And so
this is very interesting, because Gail brought that up as a bit of an early gazump in case the picture taken was illegal as a private vehicle. Just asking, how about that? Early gazump strike for Gail.
Yeah. Well, the suggestion here is that you can wear this extra finger like a ring. So when the genuine surveillance camera takes you and they produce that in court, you can say, well, hang on, that looks like AI. Why have I got 6 fingers? So I rather like that.
That is really, really clever. I like that.
Isn't it?
It's a funny look at picture, isn't it? That's weird. Ring finger. How about that?
Righto, good old zombie stories that will not die. And this is another run round the block for the old antagonise the Chinese story. So Australia's back antagonising the Chinese by operating naval helicopters and vessels in their own backyard. And this was only last week when there was another conflict between Australia and China in the Yellow Sea. So Australia said, well, we're operating in international waters, so what are you worried about? And the Chinese said, no, you're very close to our mainland and those are military assets and you could be hoovering up intel. And the Chinese are right, because that's where the Yellow Sea is. The Yellow Sea is right off the coast of China. And the Yellow Sea is nowhere near Australia. The closest landmass of Australia is more than 5,000 kilometres from the Yellow Sea. So I asked the question that I asked last time. I don't care if it's international waters or not. What the hell is Australia doing operating weapons systems up there, antagonising our largest trading partner? And our largest trading partner said they don't like it. Why are we doing this? What is the benefit to Australia in doing that? And remember the hoo-ha when they sailed a task force around Australia? And that was just sailing between Australia and New Zealand. It wasn't sailing 200 kilometres off their coast.
It's really weird, you know. I mean, we've got the most sympathetic government to the Chinese Communist Party, you know, known as the Democratic Socialist Labor Party of Australia. You'd think, like, why are they doing this antagonising of their friends that wanted to, you know, supply Belt and Road initiatives here, and had, you know, Chairman Dan and Albo and that go over there? Like, what is our defence force at odds with our government? I mean, what's going on here? Is it always, you know, I don't know. I can't make no head nor tail of it, Bruce.
How does this comprise defending Australia? This is attacking China, which, by the way, is not a great idea.
There's a comment there from Phil, because the US said we have to, maybe. I don't know.
And I don't doubt that's the reason. All righties. Couple of Uzis to finish. So what you got there?
Cracking of the 2 hours. Look at that.
Perfectly timed, eh?
Look at you go.
So here's one for the climate change and files. So now it's climate change and the new war. And apparently the Gulf War has to stop because of climate change. And as I said in the intro, but hang on, haven't we shut down oil exports? Isn't that what you guys actually want? Isn't that supposed to be a good thing? But no, they explained the war could unleash massive amounts of planet-warming gases, and that's apparently a panel of experts that told us that.
As opposed to a volcano farting at random.
Now, all I can say is give it a rest, warmer doomies. Not everything that happens in the world has to immediately be linked to the oncoming Thermageddon.
But Google told them to, Bruce.
Yeah.
Oh, and who's Google predominantly owned by?
BlackRock.
Vanguard, State Street. Anyway.
All right. And finally, another one for the climate change end. This is climate change in hairdressers. With this study from the UK saying that hairdressers should be recruited as trusted local influencers to influence the public about climate change action. So what did it say? The research shows that hairdressers can be influential in everyday conversations with clients about climate and sustainability, and are successfully prompting people to rethink their sustainability habits, ranging from their use of water and energy to their choice of bank or diet. I got one thing to say about that, Mark. I can see why I didn't receive that message from my hairdresser.
Yeah. Not even your beard trimmer either.
Just pluck it out when it gets too long.
Yeah.
There we go. Cut it out for another minute. And we're up to 2 hours, Mark.
Yeah, look at you now. It's bloody cracker of a show. Look, I think we had a couple of people in the comments raise concerns when you mentioned that when you mentioned that show 100 would be the final show, Bruce, so you want to put their minds at ease, or are you planning to have that conversation with me over the next couple of days?
I was thinking we could maybe put a poll out there.
Yeah, we could put a poll out there, couldn't we?
Favour or against? Can you do one of those Survey Monkey things?
Oh, probably I could if you like. I'll see if we can drag one of those out. Yeah, see if we can.
Or let's smash out the comments. Put your comments in relation to this show, and we'll just see, because it's line ball at the moment, I think.
Well, we did originally agree to 50 episodes, didn't we? We said 50. You're gonna crack into 50, and we nearly doubled that. So we want to see if we get people whether people want to keep us on air or not, whether they got frustrated with your bloody old ding-a-ling phone messaging.
Yeah, got a bit busted there, didn't we?
We did. Well, it's not like, I mean, look, nearly 100 shows, and it's the first time it's happened. I mean, you have knocked yourself off a few times, but other than that, it's been pretty good in the early days.
Yeah, we're still learning it.
We are still learning, mate. So so Richard reckons that we should be doing at least 250 shows. Good on you for the. I love that.
Oh, that's a heavy burden, isn't it?
That is a bit of a burden. That's, like, wow, that's a couple of years, Bruce. That's a little bit more work to do yet. And listen, just to be really cheeky, I finally managed to get something up and running. So totally, just as a bit of a cheeky plug. But I've finally got it live. The site is live, as you know. We talk about lots of themes here, and people can sort of challenge me and judge me on my failings as a Christian, and or fall short in lots of ways. But my site is up and running, a faith, culture, politics site. So this is where all my articles go, and it is live. So the latest videos go there. And people that don't know too much about me, they can go to the full bio and find out about how you and about days when Becky, you and I met, and why I started doing what I'm doing over the last 5 years, if they want to read a little bit about that. But anyway, there's just a really cheeky little plug about my website being live since Substack decided that they wanted to appease the Australian government with the under 16 social media ban, and they had no obligation to do so. And at the end of the day, I wanted to stick to my principles and went, well, there you go. And look, I'm open to be criticised as well in regards to my principles. I'm obviously still streaming to YouTube. In order to have my website, I utilise Google platforms. So, when you talk about principles, you've got to weigh up: do you want to get your voice out there, or do I just go out there in silence and say I'm going to give it all away and stick to my principles? I think it's a bit of a balancing act, and I'm by no means saying that I'm a perfect person. Being a Christian, with my worldview and my comments, I can definitely be picked up on and challenged with my behaviour and the way I carry on sometimes. But I do try and do my best, and I do try and draw close to the Lord. I'm not a cradle Christian. I come to faith very late on in life, so I lived in the world for a long time before that, and I'm growing every single day. But I do know for sure, Bruce, that I'm very grateful that you've been put in my life, and that we've been doing these shows for nearly 100 shows. So thank you for everything that you do, my friend. And I'm pretty sure from the comments that they're coming through that people are quite happy with where we're going. So it's totally up to you, Bruce, whether you want to give me the flick in 2 episodes' time or hang around for a little bit longer, brother.
I think we'll put that to the audience as well.
Yeah, that's it. Chuck it out there, guys, and send us some. Fill up the Clo comment section and mine over there in faith, culture, politics. And good on you guys. Love you all. Love you. The fact that you spend time with us a lot of times, 2.5 hours, and you appreciate the stuff that Bruce is bringing. I think Bruce. As we know, I haven't promoted ourselves financially very well. Bruce and I get virtually nothing. I do get a little bit of platform stuff and some support in that, but Bruce does this off his own volition, out of the kindness of his heart. He gives to the community in lots of ways, and you've done the same with this show. You've put a lot of hours in, quite a few hours, into putting this content together as well. So kudos to you, my friend, and I'm grateful that you've chosen me to be the platform that you bring this information out there, mate. So God bless you all, and I hope you have an amazing week, everybody. God bless Australia, and thank you as usual, my friend.
Back at you.
Sayonara, peeps.
To fight again for that already burned, it was driven towards the flames. All the signs are there for all to see, the signs we've lost our way. When we jail our heroes and applaud our villains and turn our hearts away, like a silent choir, too scared to sing the anthem of a braver day. A song our children may never hear, the ballad of Dr. Bruce Paix. A song our children may never hear, the ballad of Dr. Bruce Paix.